Chapter 2. Acetra didn't do so well on her midterm exam. She woke up at 8 p.m. with her face in a book. Her professor didn't agree with her opinions, which she chalked up to bad studying. She went straight home after her exam and hit the short stories and poetry. One new message. Her implant indicated. It was from Bex. He seemed distressed. She called him back. Static. Was something wrong with his implant? Zalpha duplicated the planned cyborg's decision to leave, accompanied by a strategic invitation to follow. He noticed a scarlet-clad female on the left, so he went left, then left again, up a stairway, counting the steps as he went. 12. By now, Bex's binary matrix was questioning why he was following this apparent stranger. Zalpha knew he could win this game in 4 decisions or moves. Bex required 6. Zalpha faked into the lounge again, a cheat. As Bex searched, Zalpha was behind him again, hunting the hunter. Bex eventually gave up and headed to his dorm. Zalpha followed. Bex entered his dorm and locked the thumbprint scanner. No problem. Zalpha dusted his own hand for the matching thumbprint acquired by the earlier handshake. He opened the door to find Bex in a state of lethargy, foaming at the mouth. Bex, again not recognizing Zalpha as the mind trap had weathered his eyes. More. Asked who was there. Zalpha administered the epinephrine and answered, "A friend." Activate frontal cortex, Bex commanded his implant. His ears heard only static. Syntax error 1.618. Visual fractals began expanding and contracting in front of him. He knew everything and nothing at the same time. Bex felt lightheaded. He felt insects crawling under his skin. He felt purple, navy, and emerald. He could taste the finest ambrosia, and he could smell God. Decompressing facial recognition. A voice in his head. "Wake up, Bex." Archaic eyes. A spectrum of color passed through a prism, producing white light, then darkness. Deep caverns underground, passing through the earth like a worm. He screamed out loud, hearing only his father's voice. Then a familiar rhythm sounded, and Bex found himself impulsively dancing. The rhythm intensified and matched his breathing. He began vomiting light, and then he discovered silence. The silence consumed him. Bex was awash with a sensation that could only be explained, that couldn't be explained by words. The implant became obsolete. The apple seed was planted in his mind. He developed chlorophyll in his animal cells and began to photosynthesize. His binary matrix was overloaded, and then he slept, having converted carbon dioxide, light, and water into sugar, dreaming green. Zalpha was watching over Bex as he came to. Bex felt no hangover. In fact, he felt invigorated. "Zalpha, how did you find me?" he asked. "I never left," was the answer. Bex got up off the ground and looked in the mirror. Green eyes, with the wisdom of centuries, stared back at him. Had he aged 200 years? "I see you tried the apple," Zalpha remarked. "Let me adjust your implant." Suddenly, a knocking came at the door. The clock read 8:32 p.m. Bex met Acetra at the entrance to his dorm, who embraced him in her arms. She looked into his now green eyes and gasped. What happened? Hubris and 89X knew that Bex was dead. They knew he didn't have access to his implant. The apple would see to it. What they didn't know was that Zalpha had followed Bex home and neutralized the neurotoxin. The gift of insight and death had been delivered, but rebirth was thought to be impossible. Hubris quivered in the fluorescent light. 89X topped up Hubris's nitrogen. Together they filed for corporate exile. Corporate exile. 66.67% was enough of a vote to kick Bex out of the corporation. The 3 became 2. Zalpha used his implant's repair function to modify Bex's, changing its protein-compliant operating system to better suit a dual protein/chloroplast rig. The software upgrade took, and Bex became himself again. His implant indicated missed messages from Acetra, who was now present. She looked into his eyes, then looked at Zalpha. What happened to Bex? She asked him. He's lost his status as an individual in the eyes of the law. For starters, Zalpha began. We can fix this easily enough, but he also experienced death and rebirth. Bex and Acetra were confused. Zalpha read their facial expressions and gave a straight answer. We need one another. Acetra wasn't convinced. Bex, however, blurted out something strange. We am 8. Didn't do so well on your midterm, did you, Acetra? Zalpha went on. I can teach you to be omnilingual. Bex can bring me back, and you just keep on giving Bex that special ingredient, your love. I understand it doesn't make sense now, but it will in time. Trust me, the 3 of us would make a very powerful corporation. To what end? She asked Zalpha. That's up to Bex, he replied. She looked at the 2 of them, then focused on Bex. What do we do now? She asked him. If Zalpha here is certain that I'm no longer an individual in the eyes of the law, I've got to get that status renewed. Then we're going to confront Hubris 89X. Bex had trusted the duo who had given him the apple. Now, he knew things that he could not forget. Why did they make an attempt at his life? Syntax 1.618. A shock went through him. Phi? The golden ratio? Everything and nothing made sense. Zalpha phased into the mind trap. We am 8, Bex repeated. Zalpha collected stimuli, then all of a sudden, Acetra felt verbose. She understood what Bex meant. She blurted out a translation. It's the sum of our matrices. 3 plus 2 plus 1. The trinity plus a binary plus a trinity. Bex pulled a guitar out of his closet and began to play a song. Zalpha phased out and gasped for air. Welcome to the schizoid cult, my friends. Try the apples, they're simply divine, he exclaimed. Bex and Acetra put their hands out in front of him. Zalpha reached out and completed the circle of hands. They formed a corporation. Hubris and 89X sent notice to Sector H. It read, Eve shall burden Eden no more, and Adam shall carry her punishment. To Together, they march towards entropy. Check Dorm B for human remains. A meta-organism. A meta-organism advanced on Sector H and compressed its denizens into data. Hubris 89X watched the compression from the safety of the eugenics department. The Hex Gen clones were rendered temporarily defunct, left in quarantine. Generation Iota came to be. Soon, they would be filled with implants similar in nature to the Hex Gen variables. Soon, they would become individuals in their own right. Their DNA, a pale reflection of the modern game. Schizoid Cult Corporation narrowly escaped the collapse of Sector H. The music that Bex produced followed a rhythm set by Zalpha's mind trap. Acetra sang along, the music gently bringing Zalpha out of a near-autistic state, which warned them of Sector H's demise. Bex felt Acetra's love for him grow, which he photosynthesized into a source of energy so powerful it launched the corporation into the fourth dimension by ripping the fabric of the third. Shapes were foreign, sounds more surreal. Entities collaborated together to create and transform. Acetra fell into a comatose state, the fabric of reality overwhelming her. Zalpha, too, fell ill. Bex, however, remained conscious and negotiated through this fourth-dimensional void by remembering the future. He snatched the fourth-dimensional shape out of the atmosphere and uttered 1.618. Shoom! The schizoid cult arrived at Sector A, Dorm X, the portal closing behind them. Bex's partners awoke. Did it work? Zalva asked. Acetra said nothing. Bex offered Zalpha the fourth-dimensional shape, which passed through his visual field and passed beyond it. Zalpha took it and studied it closely. Bex's implant indicated a new message. Call Sam. Zalpha puked his guts out. Let's step inside, he said, composing himself. He pushed his thumb against the scanner and uttered, Telekinesis 24. The door opened, and the three of them stepped inside Zalpha's dorm. Sam had gone from this plane of existence. The mouse scurried through Sector H's databanks as a collection of ones and zeros. The ether. Games were present, but they were simplified to binary and mono formats. Either the switch was on, or it was off. There was no maybe, no in-between. Sam traveled this digital representation of stasis, searching for the way home. Where are you, Sam? Zalpha said aloud. Bex and Acetra looked at him in askance of Sam's identity. Sam's a mouse. He came from outside the university. He came from a land of poverty and natural ideals. Eugenics made us what we are. Artificial expressions of the natural world. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Bex. Where is Sam now? Acetra asked. I can't pinpoint the last time I saw him. He's either compressed into binary code like the rest of Sector H, or he's in the fourth dimension, or somewhere else, Zalpha said gravely. Bex was hit with the realization that he was the last remaining Gen 8 clone. He died on the inside, contemplating the implications. Can he be brought back? He asked. Not yet, Bex. Not yet. Remember, You can buy your copy on Amazon.com. You just look for this image here and this there. That's my author name, Swift Mulligan. See you next week for Chapter 3.